item that involves the Department of Public Enterprises, presented by the DG with his team. I think we'll be we have already received the presentation. It's not such a long presentation. Sometimes presentation can fool you and only to find it's loaded. But I think that's the only item that we have. And without wasting time, I will ask the Secretary to present us with the apologies so that we can be in a position to continue with the session. Secretary?
Thank you, Chair and honorable members. The only apology I received, the ministers will not be able to join us today. I received an apology. And also, Ms. Komani also will be joining us after 10. Those are the only two apologies.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you so much. Ms. Mkwanasi, Honorable Mkwanasi, is also not fine. She's still gonna be going to some, I don't know whether it's a physical training after the seizure, and they won't be able to log in today. Yeah, that's the only one that I have. I understand that we do have the Deputy Minister, Honorable Maswali, and the DG, I also understand he is present here. Without wasting any of the time, I will ask the Minister to start with his overview, and then we go straight to the presenter. Deputy Minister.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Greetings to the Honorable Committee. Greetings to everybody. Chair, as was requested by the committee, the expectation is on us to present on the mid-year performance report by the department, as well as provide some comment on some of the AG matters that have to do with the audit outcomes as continuously we engage with the audit process. A presentation was prepared to this effect, and as you correctly noted, handed over to the committee. The Director General is to lead that presentation, which will really expose the issues of performance, which in the midst of the restrictions as a consequence of the COVID, sometimes we've had to operate in extraordinary circumstances, but it is something that we've really grown to be used to. We do show, as would be indicated in the report, that insofar as the targets we had set ourselves, we do have over the period note performance in the order of 80%, but the Director General or the selected person by the DG to lead the presentation will proceed with that, Chair, with your permission. Can I check? I do not see yet the DG amongst the members who are here, unless he's connected in someone else's gadget. Can I check if we have from the department either the acting DG or the DG?
Chair, I'm here. I'm using Bangani's apology.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Thank you. I thought so.
Yeah, we are presenting, Chair, from the boardroom. So in the boardroom here, I do have the rest of the colleagues with me. Can I ask that the host please enable Bangani's computer to share the screen?
It's done, DG.
Thank you so much. Let me do that. I think we may need to just swap them around. My apologies about that. Because which screen can the members see? Are they seeing the screen with?
DG, do you want a crash course on sharing?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not using my laptop, so it's just showing me flames, and my apologies to the members for that.
It's visible.
Is it visible?
Yeah, this should be.
Yeah, Chair, thank you, and I apologize for the settings that we have chosen. Yeah, they're not making for good sharing, but be that as it may, the members have the presentations before themselves, so we'll go through it. Chair, that's what we'll be presenting today, starting with the introduction, and obviously going into our half-year report, but where we have the latest information, we have shared them with you. So some of the data from January is already with us. We want to also speak to human resource management. It was an area that the committee had raised concerns with vacancy rates, especially. We'll speak to the financial performance, as the members would have seen. We are not where we'd like to be, but we have made progress anyway in terms of predetermined objectives. There are areas with the AG that you have asked feedback on. We'll cover that, and they will go into performance per program. We'll cover the SOC performance as we do. And the last report on fraud and corruption, we have included it as, of course, the issues of SOE malfeasance are very much in the news. So we felt it will not be good for us not to cover that. And I'm going to ask Advocate Makobe to cover that for us when we get there. Chair, we have sought to improve our oversight system as a department in order to see better results at our SOEs, and also to have a better sense within the department on the activities that we're undertaking throughout the year, so that we can see where interventions, for instance, is required. We have set up a delivery support unit in the department to help us in that regard. And you'll see it's coming through in the performance on a quarterly basis in the department. We are tracking the performance. We are very data intensive now in the department. We've introduced Power BI. We are also ensuring that we are a lot more independent as well as a department, despite us being a shareholder, in setting the agenda for SOEs, ensuring that government priorities come out very strongly. And performance management is an area of particular focus in the department, in anticipation of the next financial year. We are ensuring that the senior managers have particular projects that they are undertaking, from chief director upwards. They should have APP targets, for instance, that they are responsible for. They are strategic managers. We expect them to operate at that level. And of course, ultimately, to ensure that our efforts and those of our SOEs that do have impact on the ground, so the delivery process must live up to the expectations of South Africans, considering the amount of funds that they are providing to us as a department to do our work. And of course, ensure that we also are able to ensure that we leverage the capabilities in our SOEs to help out with regional development. And we're talking here, especially in the districts. We are orientating what was an IGR function to look closely at to mimic the DDM effort, the district development model that has been launched through the leadership of COCTA. So that those will start coming out very strongly as we report to you going forward. Chair, as I said, the performance of the department is looking a lot better than it did in the last financial year, the last quarter of the full year of 2021 financial year. We achieved 74% on our predetermined objectives. In the 3 quarters of this year, we have jumped up to 86%. In the first quarter, 98%, 91%, despite a lot more rigorous attention to what we actually are setting as our objectives, and ensure we are much more aligned to government. So we are very much ahead of the 80% threshold, and the colleagues, as they are sitting here, they will ensure that the performance of the department for the full year remains above 80%, as we are now in the middle of Q4, and of course. The AG will also have a lot to say in that regard. On the HR front, Chair, we also have made very good progress. We have been able to fill, the 7 posts that have been filled. There's 11 that are in progress. There's interviews and shortlisting has been done on about 14 of these particular of the posts that we advertise, about 32 posts. Because obviously we also need to be cognizant of the amount of money that we have. We had 17 million rands taken away from us for this current financial year from our employment budget. That's why you see the 8 posts there that have been unfunded. And the money has not come back for the subsequent years. So we're just making sure that when we advertise the jobs, that advertise the jobs that we can pay for. But most importantly for us is to get the department to a level where we can say that we are in the region of 5 to 10% in terms of vacancy rate. We'll always, by the nature of the working environment, lose people, but we cannot afford to be having the big gaps that we have had in the past. And one of the good initiatives, Chair, that is that HR, we have just completed the process of getting interns in. So we should be have young graduates working around here, helping obviously to create a pipeline going forward for the skills in the department. On financial performance, as I indicated, Chair, we are not doing as well as we had hoped. And in the next slide, we'll just speak to that. These are the different programs we have. We are on 61% on program 1, 53% in terms of cash spent in the program 2. Obviously, program 3, the numbers get distorted by the transfers that we receive from that we receive on behalf of our SOEs. We are also not doing great in that particular area. We should, this being a January report, we should be around 75%. So we are not there, as you can see from those 2 numbers. On COE, we're around 73%, which is a good number, but we know because of the vacancies, we have been underspending. So, and the goods and services at 42%. We'll speak to that. We have had some big projects, Chair, that have not come through in the timelines that we had hoped. For instance, we had allocated about 10 million rands to the development of the bill. Our colleagues in LGR have shown some innovativeness in terms of utilizing the capacity at GTEC and also internally, such that there won't be the full outlay of 10 million rands in this year, but we're expecting in the subsequent years there will be more money that will be needed, obviously, as your own process in Parliament also unfold. And also, like for instance, with Alexco, we had a plan to get in some expertise to help us out with the restructuring of the business, developing some commercially viable options for us. What we had budgeted and what we encountered when we went out in the public, there were some much bigger figures than what we had thought. But we have a new board there, and we have asked them to step in. There are people with good expertise on there that will help us to just mitigate that situation that we found ourselves in. Overall, in the other numbers, I think we are doing a little bit better, Chair. But the intention is, I think because we are this close to the end of the financial year, we are also saying to yourselves as a committee, we'll not be able to spend 100% of the budget that we have available. But what you'll see is that in terms of our predetermined objectives, we'll do much better than we have done in the past. So the colleagues really have been stretching themselves to ensure that we have a good outcomes this year. I've spoken to the 60% in terms of where we are and the reasons behind it. Obviously, the transfers are a big portion of our spend, and they distort the numbers a bit. That's why we have the 99.1% reflected there. On COE, we've spoken to that. The goods and services, of course, on our side here, when we allocate money, we want it to be spent. That's money that could have gone somewhere else. But so those are the lessons that we are taking forward. But as I said, that some of these items will start disappearing. Over the years, we are also developing capacity in the department. The colleagues have had to do the hard work that ordinarily would have been done by consultants in the past, which is a good thing, Chair. It's only in exceptional cases where we get that expertise from outside. The transfers we have spoken to, we are doing well in terms of payment of financial assets. And there's just a breakdown of that number, the 38 billion rands, which was reflected on the 39 billion rands the previous page, because it included program 3 internal expenditure. So it's 38.9 billion rands that was appropriated. We have transferred about 38 billion rands of that. There's still 236 million rands that is available in the budget, but those are savings as a result of, for instance, the movement in forex. For instance, the denials, that portion that still needs to be paid out, that is to help out with interest payments. So with SAA, we have done relatively well considering where we intended to be. With regard to the SAA payables number that you see underneath the chair, the 2.7 billion rands, that's what was allocated for the subsidiaries. We have transferred 2.3 billion rands to the subsidiaries, and Chair, at some point, the committee may want to hear as well from the SAA group in terms of the good work that they have done. The SAA Technical has restructured itself as a much smaller business, and all that effort was done without having to take the business through business rescue. The same applies to Air Chef. There was really good cooperation from unions in that effort. Of course, we have Mango. It turned out to be a much bigger problem for us. Therefore, we needed to bring in a business rescue practitioner in. So the 399 million rands that we see there is what is outstanding in terms of transfers to Mango. And our message has been very clear that the business rescue practitioner must find a strategic equity partner for the business who will bring in the money to fund the working capital going forward. The funds that the state has provided is to ensure that we restructure the business, and that's what we intend to do. So the 399 will mainly go towards paying creditors. As you know, there's been a settlement as published in the business rescue plan. And the figures, I think it's somewhere between 4 and 7 cents to the rand. So that those funds mainly will go in that particular direction. And there's still some employees that are in the organization that will need to be let go at some point. So the funding that's available will be going towards that. That's, as I've said, the Mango funds are purely for restructuring. Chair, the regular expenditure, we are sitting at a closing balance of 900,000 rands. We have our processes unfolding with the National Treasury to deal with this matter. It's a matter that you have had in the past. We had brought in a forensic investigation organization to help us out here right at the beginning of this current administration's term, to really deal with legacy issues, and we used a transfer contract, or rather we used a contract in National Treasury, which unfortunately closed before we could pay, before the work on our side was concluded. So that created an irregular expenditure situation, but we received the services, and the report was very instrumental in dealing with some of the malfeasance issues that we had in the department as well. 32 million rands that you see there, Chair, is what we are pursuing with one of the suppliers that was used here in the department under the previous regime. So we are recovering in those funds. We have instituted legal processes to recover the monies. We had a forensic investigation done, which has confirmed that there was wrongdoing there. So we are pursuing this matter vigorously on our side. On matters raised by the AG Chair, the team has worked very hard in terms of responding to those, because the recommendations from yourselves was that emphasis of matters must be addressed. As you can see, we had an emphasis of matter on finance management. Our colleagues in finance and supply chain have worked hard to ensure those are addressed, and also the issues around impairments related to our investment in our SOEs, that has been addressed as well. We have the AG on side already. They've done the interim audit, and we are working very hard in closing the remaining items. I think with IT, the issue of the GITO, the head of IT, is an area that we'll not be able to close it by the end of this year, but the rest we should be able to do so. So these are the SOC audit findings. What our colleagues in financial analysis and investments do is that they keep track of the audit findings at the SOC. There's regular engagements with the colleagues in the SOC, the CFOs especially, to ensure that these matters are being given the attention that they deserve. And as we know, with Transnet and Eskom, issues of irregular expenditure have been very much top of the agenda. So we are also working with our colleagues at National Treasury, especially the Accountant General, to ensure some of the rules relating to irregular expenditure. We have a closer look at them, and we bring them in line with how the private sector will deal with this kind of item. As can be appreciated, Chair, we have some of our entities that also find themselves with a challenge now due to going concern issues, have not had an audit. That's an area that is being addressed, as it was reported in the last week by the minister. The medical aid benefit fund issue has been resolved. That should release R1 billion into denial, which will go a long way in terms of helping to kickstart operations and at least also do good by the employees. But we are also working on some innovative solutions in view of the constraint situation that a National Treasury is in, and also obviously a very clear message that there will not be funding for operational deficiencies at SOEs. SAA, they have started with rectifying the past audits. The 2018 financial year audit has been concluded. So now working in subsequent years, 2019, 2020, and eventually with 2021. So the interim board there has really worked very hard in this area, despite obviously them not having been there for those years. And the AG has also really thrown resources at SAA to ensure that we can get to par fairly soon. The ALEXCO audit is expected to be concluded by the end of last month, and there are quality reviews that are unfolding at present. So we don't have the details on these, Chair. We can always provide the actual audit findings, the details behind this slide the members would like to have. We can always provide that. This is the performance program, Chair. These are obviously unaudited results, but our authorities in here, the assurance authorities, I can tell you, they are very hard in ensuring that there is adequate evidence to support performance being claimed. So we are doing very well in program 1 in terms of reskilling and upskilling of our employees. The program that we have set to undertake, those we are doing very well in, and we have an HR plan, which is obviously what we are working against to ensure that we improve the quality of people that we have, that the progress against that is we are doing very well. On the side of monitoring malfeasance at our SOEs, ensuring conflicts of interest and do not become a major issue, we are doing very well, and we are anticipating that there will be reduction in the number of cases that are concerning, that are involve conflict of interest either by our executives or board members. Chair, there will have a much more detailed report on the forensic audits and some of the issues related to corruption later on, and I'll leave that for now. In terms of looking at financial performance of SOEs, reviewing of those, we have also really kept up with the schedule as a department. And there is also on issues of external audit findings, keeping track of that. We've shared the information just with you here. We have done very well, the colleagues in FAIS have done. Chair, in terms of socio-economic impact, we track local content at our SOEs. We also have a program that we are running with SABS, where we are independently reviewing local content that is being claimed by a program that work has commenced this year. So we are, and that's really is the platform from which will improve industrialization performance in our economy. So we're keeping that very close because of this, our SOEs, especially the big ones, from a very significant portion of capital formation in this country. Chair, we also look at, despite the very difficult situation that our SOEs find themselves in, ensure that they're performing on issues like CSI, preferential procurement, so that we improve the level of compliance at our SOEs. As our SOEs ultimately must set the tone for the rest of the country in terms of transformation, in terms of involvement of marginalized, historically marginalized people in these complex activities that they perform. We have a unit that looks at environmental compliance at our SOEs, and they have an EAP that manages their activities, and they are performing well against that particular plan. And also what we do is we monitor the commitments, our national commitments, which are within our own space, for instance, ESCOM, with regard to emissions, and the team has done well. Of course, issues of compliance, getting to compliance is still a big area of concern on our side, but the team, in terms of at least ensuring that we keep our SOEs on their toes are doing well in that regard. The compacts, we are not doing as well as what we would have liked. On this slide, we are speaking to the Energy and Resources Unit. The performance not as good as we had hoped. There would be Eskom and SAFCOL where we would like it to be, but we have a new board that has come in at Alesco that has asked to review the compact, but that we're expecting we should be green in this area. For the same SAFCOL, they are undertaking investment programs to diversify their revenues away from saw logs. They are doing well in that regard. Timbadola is one of the major investments that they need to do. It's still very much in the feasibility stages. We want to see new equipment going on there and hopefully create more opportunities for our people. Alesco will share with you the performance later on. Has stabilized very nicely, and the colleagues, in terms of what they had planned to do, they are doing that despite the challenges that we have had with the effort we want to undertake on restructuring. At least we have passed the baton, so to speak, to the board. So that has come in. Now they'll help us to manage some of the costs that we have seen. On the Eskom side, we are in terms of activities of oversight that we're undertaking. The colleagues are reporting good progress, but of course this needs to be looked at also within the context that in terms of its own performance, in terms of keeping the lights on, the business has not been doing as well as it should, but we are keeping our end of the bargain, so to speak, on these ones. Chair, on the transport side, we should have shoulder compacts for Transnet, Denel, and SAA. SAA, we know the challenges that they are having, but we are happy to inform you there that the work largely has been completed. Transnet and Denel negotiations to finalize the compact are currently being undertaken. We do monitor, Chair, the major programs at Denel. We have a joint oversight committee with DOD, with AMSCO, where we look at these programs and we see what is it that we can do from our side as a shoulder department to help out. And of course, AMSCO as the client also is around the table to assist. In some cases, we are able to optimize some of the delivery blocks on these programs, be able to release funds to enable the work to be done. That has been happening, and we know as well there has been a call that maybe at some point we must come back to share more detail in this area. Will be advised by the committees when we'd like to have that, Chair. The rolling stock monitoring performance, we are doing that. There's lots of pressures in this area. We've seen what the various customers, especially the mining companies, have been saying with regard to availability of capacity on Transnet lines. It's an area that is getting quite a big focus from Transnet, as shared by yourself, the committee, in the previous presentation that they made on private sector participation. Chair, with regard to setting up the board and the corporatization of TNPA, we know that we have gone out and asked people to put themselves forward to serve on this committee. The department is busy with the work to ensure that we are able to have a competent board in place. We do have interim appointments from the main board at present, so the work is continuing as required. On the container terminal side, there has been a work shared with yourself in terms of what Transnet is doing. Obviously, our particular area of focus has been on ensuring that the port equipment reliability improves. And that is being monitored, and the colleagues are producing regular reports to enable intervention where required. The corridor strategy was also shared with the committee when Transnet presented here. Chair, we do have an internal unit, research and economic modeling unit, that produces regular reports for us, the specific topics that they are given to help us out in terms of improving, obviously, our knowledge in doing oversight of the various sectors that we are responsible for. Of course, our economy, as you know, is very much linked to what's happened at the international front. So those reports have been produced as expected. We'll go rather quickly through these slides, obviously cognizant of time, and to give members an opportunity also to ask questions. With regard to Eskom, the performance has improved against budget, but we know this has been on the back of government support, 32 billion rands in the current financial year. That has seen cash in hand as a result improve, and we know borrowings have now dipped below 400 billion rands as a result. But we know a lot more work needs to be done to ensure that the debt burden is at a point where Eskom can service this, can service it without government support. So there's various initiatives that are being undertaken in this regard. The restructuring of Eskom, the work has gone very well. By December 2021, we had said that we want to have the transmission business standing alone. That legal separation was achieved, but as we know, that the Electricity Regulation Act and the electricity pricing policy needed to also be amended. Those have gone through cabinet now, so that will also further enable us to set up Eskom Transmission as the national transmission systems operator, obviously still under the Eskom umbrella as promised by the president when this was originally announced. I think it was in the summer of 2019. And the expectation is that by the end of this year, we should have achieved legal separation at generation and distribution. Transnet performance, Chair, these have been hard times for Transnet, and the pandemic has played a big role, and without discounting as well the fact that it's so well articulated by the Zondo Commission that there was hollowing out of these businesses, of course. But what we are seeing is that there was 597 million rands loss that was anticipated by end of quarter two, but the loss has been managed down to 209 million rands, and there's been quite a lot of focus on managing operating expenses, which I think is a good thing, Chair. And on the cash front, there's a bit of cash in hand. The borrowings sitting at about 127 billion rands. Chair, we've spoken about privatization that is underway. The board appointment, we've spoken to that. The PMA application has been looked at, obviously with external capacity being brought in to help out in that regard. On the freight rail side, they've gone a long way in terms of ensuring that the objective that has been pushed by the policy on the policy front for quite some time to say that the operations and infrastructure ownership should be separated. That is the work on that has been done. The accounting split has been achieved. The PSP framework and progress on that has been shared with yourself in the past. New strategic carriers have been brought in, Chair, and there's been quite a lot of focus, obviously, especially with the industry having really been calling for intervention in this area to ensure that equipment operation is up to standard. And there's been quite a a lot of focus as well in terms of improving the corridors maintenance effort. Denel, Chair, is a business that, as I said earlier, requires some innovative solutions in terms of funding to be found. The fact that we've been able to unlock medical aid benefit fund is a big plus for management there. And we'll have to look at the kind of partnerships that we can bring into Denel to ensure that its separate divisions are given a leg up. And we have seen, I'm sure some of you have seen what the Germans have done, Chair, that have said we're going to spend $100 billion on their defense and equipping themselves. So this should be a signal that the defense expenditure around the world should be going up, and we want a fair share of that as South Africa. We have very well proven equipment here, and Denel is a custodian of some of the world leading products. So they would want to see jobs being created again within Denel and the rest of the industry. So there's a lot of upside for Denel considering where it finds itself. Let's go check the financial situation has stabilized quite well. We are sitting in a positive net profit position. Obviously, the AG's effort being undertaken there will tell us where the business finds itself. The PSJV as well has also been paying back the money that was advanced to them in the past to help, especially with procuring of new plant. So that has helped the Alesco position. But we know that the arrangement with Alesco is not an optimal one. That's where we expect the board to come in and assist us greatly. Spoken to the profit situation. They have brought in the sales and marketing effort internally. As we know, the business that was doing this work before was tainted, and as it was shared at the Zondo Commission, that contract was terminated. Safcol is doing much better, Chair. It looks like the perennial problem of not getting above the billion rands revenues will be broken. The half-year performance there at 660 million rands. We hope the second half of the year has been good to the business, but it's a business that has not had any reliance on government. Maybe it's one of the first business that will show us a bit of dividends going forward. There's something for DM to ensure that we achieve there. Ifloma, Chair, the business is now giving us positive financial outcomes, and that's a business that was very much dependent on Safcol to sustain it. Really, we appreciate the effort that the current management has put into writing that Ifloma business. Of course, Mozambique, by virtue of its more favorable climate, is very good for plantation, forest plantation business, and going forward with partnerships, we are expecting Safcol to really ensure that business start to contribute a lot more handsomely to the group. SAA, Chair, this is a Q2 results. As we know, there was a lot of expenditure that went into setting up or in terms of restructuring of the business. Those that will be expected. We expected that the figure on the expense side will be on the higher side, but going forward, it should stabilize fairly well, and the business, I'm sure at some point, will come through to also report here. The Durban line is being restarted, which is great, and the regional routes also have been performing relatively well. But it's still a tough market for the aviation industry. Just say, Chair, as I said earlier, the restructuring of the subsidiaries that has gone very well. Mango is the one that needs to go through its own baptism of fire, so to speak, through the business rescue process, and expecting that work will be concluded fairly soon. And and the business rescue practitioner has reported that he has got some interesting offers from the market for the business. So we'll see what he produces and puts before us. There has been further support that was obtained from National Treasury to take care of outstanding liabilities for the business as budgeted for in the business rescue plan. So things are looking up, and the processes in terms of bringing the private sector partner into the business, the SAP, those are also unfolding very well. They are now awaiting the regulators to guide us in terms of whether they are happy with the transaction or not. Mr. Makobi, if I can ask you to come this side and speak to this report.
Thank you, DG, and good morning to the Honorable Chairperson and the Honorable members. I'll go through the fraud and corruption report, and you'll see from the report there are certain instances where civil suits are instituted to recover money, but there's also instances where matters have been referred to the law enforcement authorities for criminal prosecution, but also in certain instances matters are still under investigation. If we can start with Transnet with regard to the procurement and the award of the 1064 locomotive contracts, the matter was before the courts and the locomotive contract was set aside. There were 4 cases that were opened with subs, which are still under investigation as well. But also there's a litigation that has been brought by Transnet and SIU for the civil recovery of the 4.2 billion. The second matter is the matter of the regiments, which is the overpayment to regiments for the risk sharing model for 79 million, and also the overpayment to regiments for 189 million for the arrangement of the China Development Bank loan. There is no criminal referral yet, but the matter is still under investigation by the SIU. After the investigation, if there are any criminal activities identified, the matter can be then referred for criminal prosecution. Transnet has settled with regiments for an amount of 180 million, but no payment has been made yet as regiment is still in liquidation. The third matter is the Trillion companies. There's 3 matters there: the club loan transaction for 93 million, the property optimization claim of 41 million, and the structured finance solution for 11.4 million. There are 2 cases that has been opened with subs and also with the Hawks, but the litigation is continuing by the SIU. The Trillion companies are currently in liquidation. If we move again to Transnet on the sub matter, Transnet and SIU are really applying themselves on this matter and also making further investigations with regard to the commissions by sub of 17 million paid regarding a contract amount for 160 million. The matter has not been referred for criminal prosecution yet. It might be referred to after investigations, but SIU is investigating the matter. The next matter is the reinstatement of the former CEO of Transnet, Mr. Siyabonga Gama, for the payment of 17 million that has been paid for him for it to be claimed. The matter has been actually referred to in the recommendations of the state capture report. The matter is still under investigation by Transnet. With regard to ESCOM, the first issue is the Tegeta exploration and resources. SIU instituted proceedings against Tegeta and BRPs for the amount of 734 million. And then ESCOM filed a notice to abide. So this matter, the SIU is taking the lead on it, and ESCOM is abiding by that. There is a matter of Trillion Management Consulting, where ESCOM has obtained an interim enforcement order, which directed Trillion and Mr. Wood to pay 595 million to ESCOM within 5 days. However, Mr. Wood did not honor this order. SARS also intervened because Transnet had claimed, but SARS intervened and said Trillian owes them 600 million. And because in terms of the law, they are a preferent creditor, so that 600 million was paid. But however, Eskom has submitted a claim for 595 million to the liquidators. But because SARS is a preferent creditor, we are not challenging or contesting that. Still on the Eskom, there is a matter of the Velge Residential Development Project. Eskom is pursuing civil recoveries to recoup losses attributed to the general manager for their conduct in the transaction. The matter is still under investigation by the SIU. So where there is fruitless and wasteful expenditure of employees of the SOEs, those will be pursued even if they have left the organization. I think it's important to overemphasize that. The next matter is the Econ Oil and Energy, where Eskom instituted arbitration proceedings against Econ Oil to recover the 1.2 billion, which has been overcharged over 5 years. So the amount is being pursued, and the matter is at the appeal stage after the arbitration. There is also the matter of former Eskom directors and executive that have been implicated in state capture. So Eskom is pursuing civil suits against 7 former directors and executives, and the matter is before the court. So even if they have resigned, you can still institute civil suits against those former employees and executives. With regard to SAA, the first matter there is the Swissport ground handling, where a contract was inflated for potentially 1.1 billion rand. The matter has been referred to the law enforcement agencies for criminal investigation, and SAA is in the process of lodging a claim through the special tribunal, which really has been instituted to deal with these cases so that they are dealt with expeditiously. There is an issue of the ground handling units that were sold for 3 million to JM Aviation, but they were worth 7 million. And they were subsequently sold to Swissport for 9 million. So we need to recover the 4 million. The matter has been referred to the law enforcement agencies for criminal investigation, and SAA is proceeding to lodge a claim for 14.5 million through the special tribunal. So the matters will not be going to the normal court roll. It will go to the special tribunal and will be finalized quite quickly. The last matter there is the JM Aviation contract, where the board did not approve the Air France deal regarding the components or deposit in cash, but not in the letters of credit. The matter has been referred to the law enforcement agency for criminal investigation, but then SAA will lodge a claim for 1.3 billion through the special tribunal. Thank you, honorable members, and thank you, DG.
I will request that we stop there, and thank you very much. Chairperson?
Yes, you're done now.
We are done, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Honorable members, that is the presentation, midterm program report by the department. I will just go through the names as I normally do. Kickstart by Honorable Shabalala.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Let me greet everybody in the meeting and really say outright on the onset that allow me not to switch on my video. It's raining in Johannesburg, so it's quite bad. So I'm hoping that I won't be cut off as I speak. So I'm going to try to run very quickly. Chair, the Department of Public Enterprise has achieved unqualified audit and met more than 80% of its target. And the department report indicates that progress made in its functioning since the easing of COVID-19 pandemic restrictions. So the performance in relation to the APPs shows that the department is determined to improve corporate governance and financial management, which is very key to the financial turnaround and development of SOE. So I say that, Chair, as a good thing that one notes from the performance of the department, and we really need to give them a round of applause for such a good performance in this instance. So, Chair, my question is that I want to check on the human resources management. The department states that there are appointments, interviews, and shortlisting in progress with the sale of SAA Express and possibly that of Mango. So the department will have to really check the SOEs that it oversees, meaning it will have two less SOEs to oversee, since, well, this is what they're going to go through. The question becomes, what does the department require additional capacity if that's the case, because you are minimizing? So on the delay of signing of shareholder compacts, Chair, what are the issues that prolonged the negotiations regarding the signing of shareholder compacts for Alexco, Eskom, Safcol, Transnet, SAA, and Denel? And on the Alexco's audit outcomes, I want to also really commend Alexco with regard to this one, because we would have seen lots of changes around it and its performance. In fact, I'm very comfortable with them, including Safcol. We're noting good progress around these initiatives. So I want to check on Alexco audit findings really. How far is the department in terms of Alexco's audit outcomes? And the process was set to finish in November 2021. I think that is something that we see as outstanding, as much as their revenue are showing that there's an increase from their side and they're not requiring a bailout from our side. So that's something, hence I said it's a good progress. So on the re-advertised post GG, why were the posts for the service provider conduct, external quality assurance review, and human resource management re-advertised? So I just want to find out, why did you re-advertise that? What were the reasons around it? On the state capture report, Chair, the department report shows that Trillion Management Company owes Eskom 595 million. The same company owes SAR 600 million. SARS has been given the preferent claim, and Eskom did not contest this. What are the reasons why Eskom did not contest the preferent claim, considering that this is extreme financial situation? And I would have noted lots of issues from the latter presenter on what has been done to really recover our monies. And I want to comment as well around those type of good story, because at least for now we can hear there is something that has been done to go after our money, especially on the forensic and the investigation and the disciplinary, because it's something that we would have been asking many a time and asking to get some sort of understanding around it. So I want to comment, but I still feel that we still have to have a session as the committee where we have the legal services that deals with this, that unit that was open, to really still take us through in detail in many respects and aspects of these issues of disciplinary and recovering of our state funds. Now, the paper on the committee of DPE states that they furthermore, they brief, they aims to provide, and I think it's quite important, members of the committee with information on issues emanating from each SOE, as well as the department itself in preparation of this meeting. And that's something that we need to swift out. Hence, I think that what the DG did today in trying to really run through the issues is quite important. So now I think for consideration from ourselves for 2021 financial financial year, the department underspent on its compensation, as we would have said, and we hear the reasons. But I want to understand, because this is a huge chunk, DG. It's 43 million that we've underspent of, or 21% for that matter. So the department also had a vacancy rate of 21% for the 2021 financial year, currently by the end of December 2021. So then therefore it means that the department has underspent on its compensation of employees, budgeted by 5% on the projected expenditure for the third quarter. So the department should really advise the committee what is it that it is doing overall, what we've reported, and what we want to hear, DG, that this will not have it in the next financial year, because we can't every year speaking about the under expenditure compensation. We understand there is integrities that goes into advertisement, attracting different skills and so forth, but we need to tighten this part because there is huge unemployment in the country. So although the reliability maintenance recovery, that is a RMR program that has been implemented, and unplanned breakouts that are still high, I want to understand that, is the RMR bearing fruit, and what is DPE doing to assist Eskom in addressing this issue of load shedding? And you will understand in terms of the background where this question comes from. So in your 2021 annual report, Eskom stated that it had requested additional board members from the shareholder. Has the DPE approved this request? And what has been the progress on the request? And what are the reasons for resignation of board members? I think we want to understand this resignation of board members, if you can assist us. The department should update the committee chairperson on the Section 189 process being undertaken by chefs and SAA Technical. And also they should update the committee with regards to the SAA subsidiaries and their future sustainability, because we are noting something that can really cause us trouble going forward. And other matters of consideration, I want to put it up that the department for the committee on the status of SA Express, and has the department made a decision as to whether SA Express will be sold or liquidated? Can this come out very clear? Which one is it? Are you selling SA Express or is going to be liquidated? Can we get just a simple understanding? The progress on the separation of TNPA into a separate subsidiary under Transnet, has the board been appointed, and who was appointed? Because remember there were vacancies and so forth. So we want to understand, have you appointed, and who are these appointees? DPE should also give us the understanding on Transnet investment in infrastructure, particularly with regards to Transnet Freight Rail and Transnet Port Terminals. Chairperson, let me not touch on everything, but you understand this is a big department and is reporting each and every SOE in terms of performance. Let me just end with the last one on Alex Corelli. In the presentation, the committee on the 18th of August 2021, the DPE stated that Alex Corelli remains financially distressed but was unable to meet its immediate obligation, of which when I started we said we're seeing something different. So I want to find out that whether the joint venture PSJV restructuring was critical to its sustainability. So what are the options were being developed in this regard and being evaluated? And the administrator position was representing governance challenges. So a suitable arrangement was being explored, and this is what we got from them. Report. So the Richtersveld community structures remain in administration, and a long-term decisions on the entity was being considered. So I want to put it up that we need, with regards to this, to get the governance structure and the entity we should get some update around it. And the last one, we should also, DPE should also share with the committee what is the long-term option that have been developed and evaluated with regards to this matter. But other than that, I'm really happy, and I want to congratulate the department that is led by the DG. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Honorable Kashalia.
Thank you, Chair. I also have bandwidth issues, so I'm going to request that I don't put my camera on. I hope you are able to hear me because I'm having serious bandwidth issues. Nevertheless, I'm going to Thank you for the presentation, and I'm going to focus on areas over and above those in the presentation and on some in the presentation because to understand what the department is doing and going to do in these areas to mitigate, frankly, the mess we find ourselves in with our SOEs, with the possible exception of SAFCO. Now, in terms of general comments, for proper oversight, annual financial statements are required. This is obvious and cannot be disputed and absolutely necessary. But annual financial statements have only been produced by Eskom, Transnet and SAFCO, and Transnet's was late. What is being done, there is a private member's bill in place to address this, and is it being given due attention? Please let us know. Now, in terms of the 17.5 million allocated to perform a number of key tasks by the DPE, and it says due to capacity challenges, we will be using consultants for this work. I think it is important in terms of oversight for us to know what the cost of this will be, what the scope of it will be, whether it's out to tender, what transparency is in place, and what additionally going forward measures are being taken to capacitize the department internally so that this sort of external expense does not need to take place. Now, specifically with regard to the entities, let me start with Eskom. The separation of the transmission business is key to progress, but the transmission deadline for unbundling has not been met. What is being done to address the external dependencies that are delaying this? At SONA, the president, at the president's speech at SONA, the penny appears to have finally dropped after countless billions have gone down the drain. And there appears to be a realization of sorts that things have to be done in Eskom in terms of electricity and generation provision that goes beyond the fanfare that was earlier around Medupi and Kusile touted as a panacea to our generation problems. That said, remember that these two new entities within Eskom can provide 25% of our needs at full capacity. So what is being done to address this? The president says unbundling is on track and will be completed by December 2022. Can we confirm this timeline and stick to it, please? In previous arrangement with Eskom, the chairman of the board agreed with me that a specific and detailed and transparent timeline was required to make clear cost, impact, and gaps. I'd like to understand what progress is being made here to further this, given the agreement on it, and will the DPE prioritize this? In terms of SAA, a cabinet statement on the 24th of February 2022 says that further progress around the deal with Takatso has been made. Can we understand what represents this further progress? What are the statutory requirements required to approve the deal? And what bodies are needed to approve this deal? And what are the criteria for individual approval by these discrete bodies? SAA has posted losses since it began again. 2.7 billion rands against a budgeted loss of 2.3 billion. Why? What is being done to investigate this gap? With regard to Mango, has the DPE interrogated the reasons behind the business rescue practitioner's recommendation that Mango resumed operations in December 2021? And then there was the board's subsequent rejection of this. Meanwhile, Mango still incurs staff costs and airline leasing costs. More costs that will finally provide the final nails in the coffin of this particular airline, while competitors like Lyft, for example, are left to benefit. Has the DPE investigated the potential conflicts in the ownership of Lyft and the demise of Mango? With regard to technical, SA Technical, there's a loss of 845 million as of December 2021, despite the resumption of operations by all airlines. This needs to be interrogated because there's an uptick in demand and a downward trajectory in profit. That's a gap that needs to be investigated. So far, there have been bailouts of 2.7 billion rands, and as the DPE looked into will they advise us about what is being done to ensure profitability going on and what their efforts are in this regard. With regards to South African Express, there was news reports, not declaration to the committee, but news reports that the employees were previously successful in buying this airline. All this has apparently fallen flat, and now the liquidation is set for July 2022. Can we have updates on the provisional liquidators' plans to find a buyer, who these people are, and on what terms? This is necessary for proper oversight. With regard to Transnet, the ports have issued a RFP to secure partners for Durban and Khura container terminals, envisaged to be in place by the end of October 2022. Will the DPE investigate and share who these are, what their competencies and track records are, at what cost, and what is envisioned to implement to result in operation improvement and profitability? With regard to the segment strategy and private sector participation model, likewise, can we have a sight of this in more detail? Now, with regard to Denel, it's currently facing liquidation by Saab Grintech, and over non-supply of components dating back to 2016. Currently, they are only in May 2021. They only paid 20% of the salaries, and the company is now saying that it is defending the liquidation bid. On what basis, and how does it aim to dig itself out of this hole? We need the DPE to dig into this, please. We are now seeing, all we see in terms of Denel is yet another 5-year plan, which comes on the back of assistance with regard to turn around the situation. So, how are they going to fix this entity? On what basis? What are the implications? What cost? And can we have answers going forward? Treasury's presentation to the Select Committee on Appropriations on the 15th of February 2022 is damning. It stated there are no annual financial statements, so how do we do oversight? And Denel bonds have been suspended by the JSE. So how, to use the words of the DG, who says that we are going to look at innovative funding methods here, how are you going to do innovative funding when bonds have been suspended by the JSE management? What concrete steps are being taken to ensure that that the joint venture is in line with the PFMA, and what programs are in place to engage and pay contractors and ensure the integrity of the product? The community payment is under administration, while frankly children in the Northern Cape eat sand from the riverbeds. This has to be addressed, and it has been ongoing. The statements are that we are addressing it with this entity, with that entity, with this department, but the situation remains the same. How long is this going to go on for? SAFCO is holding its head above water, but we need to understand in terms of their three-pronged plan to stabilize, capitalize on existing product, and then move into diversification. how this is going to be done, over what time, what the cost benefit analysis is, etc., so that we can monitor this one entity in our panoply of entities that is doing okay, to ensure that it doesn't go down the rabbit hole that the others have gone down. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Kashalia. Honorable Mawatwe.
Thank you very much, Chair, and greetings to the colleagues and the officials from DPA. So I'm going to start on the human resource management presentation, or rather slides. There's a DG, you mentioned that there's 8 positions which are unfunded due to National Treasury cost containment measures. Now my question is, how is that going to affect your operations and your plans to achieve your strategic objective? And then the second one, still on the HRM, is you've got 212 positions, but you only filled 164. Today is the 2nd of March, few days before the end of the financial year. So how then do you plan to fill up this remaining 164 positions? And if you're not planning to fill them, what have you done so far? Have you informed Treasury so that they can reroute that budget to go somewhere else, since you won't be spending it? And going down on your presentation, you showed that on the overall expenditure, you've spent only 6% on the capital assets. Why is that? And since this is the last month, literally a few days before the end of the financial year, what are you going to do to improve this 6% to go to over 75% of your budget? And then an amount of 900 million, your presentation says, was declared as irregular due to the appointment of service provider, which was not compliant with Treasury regulations. Is it just one service provider, or there's a number of them? And what are we doing with that contract? How far is that contract? And what have we done to that contractor so far? On Transnet, it seems to be behind. I'm very worried about 307 mitigation plans that are behind on Transnet. Why is that, and who's been held accountable for that? Because these are audit findings, and mitigating factors are such that they assist that the problem doesn't occur. But if you've got so much that is behind, it's very worrying. So what is being done about it, and who's been held accountable? On the shareholder compact, Chair, Alex Co is yet to be finalized. We understand that they just appointed the board, but what are the plans in place to get it finalized? And then what are the reasons why Transnet and Denel have not finalized their shareholder compact? On the Transnet financial performance side, 60% of the operating expenses, 60% of their revenue goes to operating expenses. Now, that's on its own tells you that this entity is in trouble. So what is being done to turn around that situation? And that goes also to Denel, which over 40% of its revenue goes to operating expenses. I mean, we've got a beautiful picture of Safcol where they turn their operating expenses to be funded through their revenue. I mean, they've recorded a negative 670, and that's how business should be run. That's what makes it profitable. So what is being done about Denel and Transnet to change the situation? Chair, SAA needs 2.3 for operations, yet it can only make 543 million. We all know that it's in trouble. But and then your presentation correctly says that you want to appoint an SAP before the working capital gets exhausted. Aren't you putting yourself under pressure to just take anything and everything that comes your way, because now you are desperate, you're in a desperate situation? Why did we allow the situation to be where it is right now without really rescuing this entity? And lastly, Chair, on overall, I mean, SA Express, SAA, Mango, and Denel, they are literally flat on the ground.
And the issue that I'm not getting from the DG is, has there been an assessment on the impact of this in the lives and the livelihoods of the employees of these companies? I mean, we read on the news that Dinel employees, they're taking their lives. Just last week, the couple took their lives, and it's due to the stress and that comes with not being paid salaries. Now, are we as leadership, are you as leadership sitting and really doing a thorough assessment on what impact does this have on the lives and the livelihood of our people? And I leave it there for now, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Mawata. Honorable Mawata. Honorable Mawata.
Yes, Chair.
Are you done?
Yes, I'm done, Chair. I said thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Honorable Mawata. Honorable Kumede. Honorable Kumede.
Chair.
Yes.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
Good morning. Good morning to you, and good morning to all members who, in fact, are on the platform. Chair, we're dealing with a very kind of a saturated structure here. Perhaps let me start by narrating on the structure of the report. We'll understand that it's completely different from the reports that we usually get. I think especially because it includes the AG findings as well as the state capture progress. Chair, I wish to say, if I have a right to make a recommendation, that can these two remain a permanent feature on the report, especially when it comes to state capture progress report. Chair, my second comment will be on something that I may call its categorization. I've been trying by all means to instill the idea to the committee so that at the end of the day, we know where we stand with the SOEs. Chair, I would like to say I have ESCOM and Transnet falling under category 1, have SAFCOL, Alexco as category 2, but these two are stable, very much stable, and may have a little bit of a brighter future, dependent on the oversight that we give to these two. Yes, all SOEs will have teething problems. Others do have serious problems. The third category, Chair, I want to put SAA. SAA, it's something that if it does happen, it's something that as a committee we need to pride ourselves because we in fact we have resuscitated SAA when it is completely dead in a sense, and we wanted to put it as a model that if all other SOEs happen to fall into a similar pitfall, then we try and follow a similar procedure as lessons learned when we were in fact resuscitating SAA. You know, it started with a very good footing, but my observation is there is a little bit of reluctancy on those that have powers to release funding. it's a question that I wanted to find out whether the 10.5 that was given as an allocation was in fact enough or not enough. When reading the report, you'll understand that the 3.5, there is as well, I think it's a need or the requirement, or that 3.5 hasn't been released completely in terms of the payment to the business ratio. So that's much more important for us to get the trust that the more there is reluctancy in terms of using the money, especially there is a 767, which in fact that one was for work procedure, but that money has been used for the creditors. I'm happy, Chair. I'm a little bit answered, but not happy. I thought the 2.7 was allocated to help Mango, but DG has explained it to me, but I've got a feeling that the 400 million that's allocated, that's remaining in fact to help Mango is in fact, yes, it may, but it may not help overcome all issues that may make Mango to be back on the road. So that was my third category 3, Chair. My last category will be the Dinel, Mango, and Express. These, in fact, they've got a very bleak kind of future. In fact, all what I'm saying here is most concentration should be on category 1. The category 1 is a must-do, SOEs. We cannot live without ESCOM, neither can we live without Transnet. Those, in fact, are our pillars. If they are doing well, those are the ones that may help us then help other kind of SOEs. And the concentration as well be on Dinel, Mango, and Express. Yes, Mango, I think there is all of us who are still in the mist, not knowing whether it remains with us or it's gone. No one talks the language of Express. I've heard members talking that Express, yes, we have a challenge. We need to come to a definite decision at times so that we all understand. You know, there are questions that, Chair, I may want to be answered here if the Deputy Minister as well as the DG may be in a position to answer those. I hope we are not falling into that category where some of the SOEs are to be, in fact, sold or be done away with. Chair, that's how then I'm trying to categorize those SOEs with a much concentration on category 1 as well as category 3. Chair, I think I concur, I can't disagree much with Honorable Shawalala that the 80% achievement, it's in fact, it needs to be applauded. Because if we say we interpret this as 3 months left, as much as it's no longer 3 months left, the 20%, yes, can be consumed within the 3 months and get closer to 100%, if not achieving 100%. Chair, coming to SAFCOL, the question that I may ask on SAFCOL, you remember that when we're dealing with SAFCOL as well as Alexco, there are matters outstanding, in fact, the issue of flats. Can we finalize and make sure that those matters are done and we know what's happening with those residential units? SAFCOL, there is as well an outstanding matter on the land issue relating to claims. That will be much more important for us. Whether we lease, we don't lease, but as this collective, this side, we may be interested to know what, in fact, do we need to do with the land claims. Chair, coming to Dinero. Chair, I'm very, I'm disappointed in the sense that perhaps the disappointment it's not the correct word, but Chair, we cannot, there is a video that's being traded around on social media that makes the mock of SAA, or rather of South Africa, not having a viable army that can in fact face Russia at this stage. You look at that video, you begin to understand that there are many other people that are looking at South Africa as being weak. It's not all the time that will be friendly to all countries in the world. Others, they will come and attack us. They will find us, in fact, vulnerable. But what I want to say on Dinel is the exodus of engineers. I remember we were discussing this at one stage, whether it was the DG, but definitely it was not the minister. It could have been the chair of the board, which assured us when we're talking about the retention of members, and we were guaranteed that when they want those engineers back, they will definitely bring them back. I will be interested to get that assurance today. My critical concern is the intellectual property. It is very much at risk, Chair. I understand which, in fact, the DG or the deputy minister, they are to give us a report back. Because there were some issues again on the very same, the intellectual property. It is very much at risk. Very much at risk, Chair, is because the memory, let's talk about the memory. The memory will be with the engineers that in fact will leave Dinel and be employed, if it's employment somewhere else, with all that memory that they will have, or not unless we have something that will stop them from using our information in order to boost any other company or that they may join. I'm interested as well to know whether the contracts, it could be in the form of the order book, it could be with defense, that those contracts are still intact. I will be interested to know, because if it happens that Dinel does take off, our reliance is more on such work that we are saying it's there. If that work is not there, again, that will be a challenge with us. I'm as well hoping, Chair, that with the allocation of 300 billion to SOEs, there will be a share given to both defense and Dinel, so that they begin to do any reasonable work that may make it perhaps survive and be working again. I wish to suggest as well, Chair, that when these monies are allocated, I learned something from the business rescue. The business rescue, when allocated the 10.5, the business rescue process, they in fact allocated funds according to activities. I'll be happy that if any of the entities that are under DP, if there is money allocated, at least we be given a picture that that's how entities wish or want to spend the money. And it just come to us for concurrence. We're not saying that we want to change, but it gives us a better way of an oversight, as is the case perhaps with SAA. We're in a position to talk about the 10.5, the 2.7, whatever monies that we're giving. At least we're in a position to articulate and say, where is this money? Because we know that money, that fund was allocated to do something like whatever. But as a word of caution, Chair, I understand it worries me that the number has been too huge. If you have 122 members that are trying to defraud the procurement procedures, it tells me that are we not heading again for a similar situation of a state capture? So the state capture, in fact, these are the things that all of us have been saying, that what needs to happen here, can the executive help us to make sure that we don't have the remnants of such people that in fact are there, which we give them work to do and then start twisting whatever that we give them in order for them to benefit. Chair, let me wait there for now. That's what I have captured. But thank you very much for Honorable Shabalala. She, in fact, has covered quite a lot of deep sense probing questions. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Gumeda. Let's go to Honorable Buthelezi. Honorable Buthelezi, he is not there. Honorable Kwangwa. Honorable Kwangwa, you're not there also. Okay. Going to Honorable Isaac. Honorable Isaac. Is he not there? Okay. Masiye kuwe kezizi. Dlamini. Honorable Dlamini.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning, colleagues. I have noted a few things. But first, I must congratulate Alexco for the positive results they are showing now. We must, however, note as a committee that before there was a problem. Part of the problem started with the old board. We must then put mechanisms in place to ensure that the new board does not interfere with the good work that has been done by the new team at Alexco. Contrary to what Honorable Kachala may believe, he knows in his heart, we were told when we went for our oversight at Alexco that things are turning around. And DPE is telling us in black and white that things are indeed turning around, yet he still wants to convince us that things are not turning around. I don't understand this type of reasoning. Two, as DPE, a responsible department for all our SOEs, who themselves must play a role in both economic growth and job creation. I wish one day we would get reports that would speak to how many jobs we've created and how have we contributed to the growth of our economy before we allow opposition parties to convince us that we must sell all these SOEs because they are failing, even when evidence is presented that the contrary is true. I want to commend the effort to recover monies that may have been lost in one way or another. But I am concerned by the fact that we seem to be confining ourselves to what the state capture and Judge Zondo is saying, when we know, for instance, that a problem started way before that, when we were advised to sell our fleet only to lease it back, and we gave that man over 200 million for a job well done. That's when I think we need to also look at ways of recovering some of that money if it's possible, because that was money wasted. I want to discuss the ESCOM and SAFCOL. The one aspect I want to get into is the low carbon transmission that we want to pursue as a country, and the role that SAFCOL can play in terms of forestation to mitigate our carbon emissions. Maybe we need to strengthen that type of a debate and enhance the working relationship between the two, because it will shape the direction we are going to take as a country in terms of how we are going to deal with our own carbon emissions. Then I want to talk to the issues at Transnet. There are quite many. Transnet has convinced us that no, public sector participation is the way to go. Transnet is overstaffed. They need to shed some jobs, and to that effect, they've come up with voluntary severance packages. Now, a layman on the street would believe that once a company decides on severance packages for purposes of trimming their size, organizational re-engineering, so to speak, you would close off those posts. But it seems as if at Transnet something different is happening. People are taking packages and the same posts are being advertised. How is this going to work? Why are you encouraging experienced people to leave and then employing new people? Who's going to train these people? How is this going to work in contributing to the imperatives of Transnet? The TFR, for instance, they want to say they are going to allow public sector to participate in the rail network. That's all good and dandy, but if you look at what they are going to privatize, it's the rail lines that are really run down, and there's going to be a lot of maintenance. Maybe not even maintenance. They need to be started afresh, these lines, and the private sector is expected to foot that bill and secure those lines. Now, how are we going to get to that point when we still share the rail lines between Transnet and PRASA? And who's going to be responsible for issues of encroachment along the railway lines? Who's going to secure the railway line in terms of cable depths and whatnot? These are issues we need to be clarified on before the picture is painted that we are moving towards this direction and it's going to turn things around. We can't avoid discussing the issue of the China North Rail and the China South Rail and their measure to form CRC. That speaks directly to the 1064 issue. On that one, I think we've decided to go the route of courts. But if you get to the facts, you will realize that we've had a relationship as Transnet with China South Rail before, and they've delivered locomotives to Transnet, and there's been no issues. On the 1064, China South Rail delivered the rails that were ordered. Then they merged with China North Rail, which really did not deliver on anything. But now the problem starts there. After the merger, China's CRC doesn't want to give spares to Transnet. Now, one would assume that these are state-owned companies. Then DPE, through the minister and maybe through the president, there needs to be a discussion at a political level with China to try and resolve this thing so that we get some value, because as it stands, we ordered over 200 locomotives from China North, and that's scrap. We can't use it for anything. Now, that's money lost. The other thing, how far are we with trying to recover monies that were lost in that transaction in its entirety? Not necessarily from China, but including the people that were involved in that transaction at a local level. Because we have a situation now where these locomotives, they are on our tracks working every day, but they can't be serviced because China is not giving us spares. Now, we may not necessarily recover all the money that we put in, but there needs to be some form of recovery, and you might discover that these monies will offset each other, but we need to rescue the situation. What is DPE going to do, or what is DPE doing about it outside of the court process? Because the court will set aside the contract, but it doesn't speak to the money that we've put in there. I think that project cost over 50 billion rand. And if you look at the figures we are discussing 17 million there, 4.2 billion here. It doesn't even cover half the expense we've incurred out of that thing. We need to strengthen that effort to recover those monies and try and rescue that project, because the reality of the matter is we do need locomotives on our tracks so that our economy is able to function swiftly. Now, we also need to look at ESCOM in terms of I've raised this before. How far are we in terms of recovering monies from the design flaws that we see at Kusile and Midu? From engineering point of view, if the design doesn't work, somebody has to pay. We can't just write it off. Are we recovering these monies? What are we doing about it? Have these companies vanished from the face of the earth? What sort of options do we have? Because for us to grow this economy, we need to have a stable electricity supply at all material times so that it becomes easy for investment to come to our shores, and jobs will then be created. As we've argued that the private sector will create jobs. Ours is to create that environment for the private sector to do that. Now, that environment can't be created with load shedding in our midst. So what is DPE planning to do about that? Because it doesn't show very clearly in this presentation. Yes, we've spent so much, but we still have problems. We are not solving these problems. I think I'll stop there, Chair, for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Dlamini. Honorable Komani. Honorable Komani. I thought you are here. Okay. Apparently, Honorable Komani is no longer here. Honorable Piri.
Thanks, Chair. Good morning to yourself, colleague.
Good morning.
Sure, Chair, you dealt with me. And let me pass my greetings to the DM and the department personnel led by the DG. Already very difficult to, most of the question has been posed. In particular, the comrade or Honorable Chabalala, who started, has covered a lot of ground. But Chair, let me start where it led.
Honorable Piri. Honorable Piri.
The fraud and corruption.
Honorable Piri. Honorable Piri. Honorable Piri. Yeah, I'm trying to advise you to change the sitting. It means
Okay.
there is a problem of network where you sit most of the time. We don't hear you. There is a noise in your voice.
Do you still hear the noise?
Yes, you sound nicer now.
I've just put it on my earphones, but I'll try, Chair. You know,
Okay.
I'm very far. I'm next to Zim, just 10 k's away. But just bear with me, Chair. As I was saying, let me try and go and touch on the last part of the presentation, which is your fraud and corruption report. Chair, we are happy, as my colleagues were saying, with the report, but I've got only one issue on that report. There are always where there's a paragraph or a part where it says always they are referring the issue to the or maybe let me go to put it in this way. In the criminal references, there are no actions in most of the issues. We are still saying investigations, SIU, you wait for them, but I don't see a part where it shows, where you make a follow-up as a department, because I understand this is a report from the department, but we must have a timeline and also a slot where it shows us follow-ups that were done by the department. I don't see anything that talks to that, because I'm afraid this report might also come back in the next financial year having the same items and not giving us the progress report, but just saying the referral or the matter is still to SIU, or we are still waiting for implementations or all the stuff. But I feel strongly we must have a time frame in following up this particular report. Chair, let me be direct to SA Express. The last meeting or PC that we had, I was expecting from this report to be given an exit or a laying down of a report about SA Express in particular, to be told how far with SA Express, more details about it, and really are we done with it? We must no longer have a slot as a portfolio where we say we still need or have questions about SA Express. The reason why I'm saying that is always we want to go back and we don't have a specific question to express, but it's still to be told what must happen to or what has happened to SA Express. So SA Express is just a hanging SOE that we are not sure what is happening as a portfolio. But I think the DG must give us what is happening and when will we have a slot and discuss about it. How is it resting or how is it gonna rest? But I believe it's still in the exit plan. It has not yet exited the space of being an SOE. Chair, I have a worry on the SA Express, SAA. it's back on air, but I'll narrate this part to say if we've got interest at heart for an SA Express to be back to its foot and operate very nicely. When we book as members of parliament, or let me refer to myself, always we don't find proper times that are allocated to us or that suit our times to fly. It means, or it tells us that SA Express, its times are not viable for us. So I believe if we can't support it, or myself in particular, I cannot fly with SAA, how do we expect it to be back and operate nicely? So maybe the question will be, how is the strategy for it to go back and suit us on a regional level? It's not flying accordingly the way we see it in our naked eyes, not being a specialist or people who've got more experience in running the business. Chairperson, when I go to ESCOM, there was a time, in particular myself in plenary, I had to raise the issue of COO. I thought in the same slide of fraud and corruption, but not if in the level or in the space of the legal perspective, it might not fall under fraud and corruption. But as a layman, as a person who's not a guru of law, I'll think I was expecting to also get a report in terms of us recouping the money, how far with the case of the COO have been paid erroneously or wrongly so. I've never, since we got a report and since we got it from the media, there was no report that is coming from the department itself to tell us how far did the Mr. Director, or if I'm not picking up the wrong name, pay back that money that was wrongly paid to the account. Chair, when it goes to Dinel, on the matter of Dinel, Chair, we've been saying it, I'll concur with Ugumede. We've been advising even the sharing from, in most of the reports that were given by the department, we're sharing the best expertise that our SOEs can utilize. Dinel has got a capacity in dealing with aviation. There's a slot even where you could see their contract with Roy Falk. And Roy Falk, you are talking about the aviation space. And we've been calling or making a call to say, if you've got best engineers who deals with aviation, can't we share this best engineers and assist also with SA Express and Mango? Bearing in mind, we are aware that SA Technicals are doing well. So on that space also, we have never received even a better response from the department. I'm saying this because it's a report that holistically covers all SOEs. Chair, there's a point or a slide that talks about Ifloma doing well in Mozambique. At the same breath, we've got SAFCOL in South Africa. But my challenge, or I want to understand, what are the best practices that we are learning from Ifloma that we can transfer back to South Africa and make even SAFCOL to excel more or do better than what it's doing now? Because as much as we are getting a report of Ifloma doing well, we'll also want SAFCOL to do better than what is doing now. So I'll want us to get a proper plans that the department, in overseeing SAFCOL and advising SAFCOL, what are the best practices that they are learning or they are also transferring back to the country. But Chair, as I've started before to say, to be the last speaker is a bit difficult because already my colleagues have articulated or raised a number of questions that are critical and are close dearly to our heart as a portfolio. Let me submarine the Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Piri. You noted the last speaker. The last speaker is our Honorable Malinga.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning to yourself, to the members of the portfolio, the department, and everybody on the platform. I am covered, Chair. That's the disadvantage of being the last speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Malinga. You rescued me.
Okay, thank you. Honorable members, that's the questions to the Department of Public Enterprise led by the DG and Deputy Minister. Let me check if the Minister would like to, the Deputy Minister would like to start, followed by his entourage.
No, thank you very much, Chair. No, I'll just make a few remarks now and then let the DG and the team. I'm sure because it stretches all over the work of the department as well as over the entities in their varying degree of challenges. I'll just pick up a few things and, of course, indicate first overall that we overseeing the portfolio of these state-owned companies, we're really doing what is best to get them all in a state of good health. They have different types of challenges and that whose depth is at different levels. But it's encouraging to see some that are really going the right direction. In this instance, I would say SAFCOL is fairly doing better, and that could be improved. There are experiences that we have learned, very stable boards, a very strong, stable management echelon, executive management. These are proving to be elements that are ingredients towards sustainability. And then the implementation of programs accompanied by a very strong oversight over the implementation of programs, as well as supported by consequence management. Secondly, with respect to Alexco, I could say we are beginning to see from where it was, there is very notable progress. Recently, the minister has appointed a new board, a very energetic and enthusiastic board that has already taken to itself the cudgels to build on what through the administrature we began seeing there, which is what the committee saw when they visited there. I think the aim to stabilize the Alexco PSJV at an operational level, that is where the board is going to be concentrating a lot of effort, so that the proceeds of what is harvested there in the form of diamonds can actually find themselves to the market and get good returns for that, ensuring that there is security all around, and that of course, yes, it is a fact that we have to deal with the community element there, which is also, of course, with other sister departments. It's something that we are working with them to try and normalize. And I don't want to make it appear as something that we could just trivialize like that, because sometimes the community element can be quite tricky, particularly when there isn't always unanimity amongst the members of the community. I think the issue of who the register of the beneficiaries is, the proper maintenance of that, and that they are constantly being having their own meetings in which reports can be shared and that they are part of the entire thing. I think these are things that we're seeking with the support of not only the Richtersveld community, the provincial government in the Northern Cape. We're all trying to create an environment that is conducive for the community to reap the benefits of otherwise what is an asset to some extent that belongs to them. There's been quite a lot said about SA Express, Mango, and others. The team will get into them in greater detail. I'm also comforted by the fact that for some, ESCOM, Transnet, I'm comforted by the fact that the committee could still and will have the opportunity to sit with them extensively, but we shall deal with whatever we must deal with here as best as possible. But I know there is still another opportunity. In SA Express, the company really got under, and the business rescue process was initiated. And that business rescue process has not yet been discontinued. There would have been at different times an indication that there were prospective buyers who could come in as part of rescuing this. Some which at a point where when things had to be signed and sealed, they proved to be a bit challenged, which tended to prolong the period of the business rescue process. We don't have as yet a report to say that has run its course such that they could go back to court and for the court to make the final declaratory in that respect. But I think the team will speak to this in greater detail without really, I was letting you, DG, to really ready your troops. I'm sure you will start and then indicate how you will bring in your troops to respond to some of the questions of the honorable members. Thank you, Chair.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much, DM. I will try and answer as many as I can, and the colleagues will step in where I have missed any of the questions, especially in the beginning. Honorable Shabalala and Kachalia were flying. We tried to record as much as we could. If we have missed any of their questions, please, they can just remind us of some of those. The Honorable Shabalala asked about the capacity we have in the department, which is dedicated to aviation, SAA and SA Express in particular. So what are we going to be doing in that capacity? The capacity is actually quite lean. We are a very small department, as shown with about 212 positions and 164 filled. In aviation, the technical skills we have is actually 2 people. We have a director and an ASD who are looking after both entities. They get assisted, of course, by other colleagues in the finance part of the business as well as BES. But this is capacity that can be utilized elsewhere in the department when the decision is eventually made that our oversight duties with regard to these assets must come to a stop. But as things stand today, there's still quite a lot of work. We are still overseeing the last stages of a SAA transaction. As I expressed, the liquidation also, though our colleagues in legal are playing a bigger role, needs to be overseen to an end. So that's what we said. We'll answer the rest of the other SAX questions as we get to them. So what I'll say is that the capacity is actually quite minimal, and definitely, for instance, within the transport unit where aviation is located, there's enough work for the colleagues to help us out with. The shoulder complex not having been signed, we sought to answer those questions at Dinel, because a significant portion of any shoulder compact is financial performance. So, and we know get these businesses, especially now, to get to a point where it has a going concern status and we can hold an AGM, which is where the shareholder contract should be signed off. We need cash injection. And members, I want to say that we also make policy decisions by what we choose to fund or not fund. So when the Minister of Finance stands up and puts a budget on there, which eventually gets approved by Parliament, to say we are not going to be putting money into denial to fix the road that all of us saw happening right before our eyes. We started in 2015 with the expulsion of the board and the new board coming in and removing capable people that were running the business that had turned it around. And from there, very short contracts being put in place, including the Denel Asia matter, which literally got funders in the form of banks to run away from the business. So that means someone must fix it. Someone must put money in to fix it. So if we choose not to fund the restructuring of the business, where we have made a policy decision, we're saying that the defense industry is not important to us as a country. While everyone else around the world is actually doing the opposite. Today, if you were to ask the Ukrainians whether they would, if they found themselves in the same position they were after the fall of the wall, the Berlin Wall, whether they would still want to give up their nuclear weapons, they will see something different. And I'll earlier refer to what the Germans are doing. The rest of the EU is doing, realizing that you cannot rely on other people to defend them. So with those decisions that we are making, not to fund, we are making good decisions. So now to come back to the department and say, what are you going to do? What can we do when government has made a decision not to fund the recapitalization of this business? And that's where the other decisions come in. When we say we are looking for innovative solutions, Honorable Kachalia, it means that we have to go and look at what the private sector can do to assist, whether there are synergies in terms of some of the projects and some of the divisions that are within DNL. And in the process, what we are doing, we are saying that we are reducing the level of ownership that we have in this business. That's a policy decision that we are making as a country when these sort of decisions are made. Now, when there's a reference made to say the National Treasury came in and say, how can we put money in here? There's no annual statement. We all know why there are no annual reports at DNL. We don't have, an audit cannot be undertaken because the liquidity position is very bad. DNL does not have a going concern, cannot achieve a going concern status. So when you prepare statements, either you do it on a going concern basis or we do it on a liquidation basis. So if you have to do that at DNL today, it will be on a liquidation basis. So we should really ask ourselves about the implications of some of the decisions that we make, because we have a very competent board, very capable board led by Ms. Gloria Serobe, whom all of you know very well at DNL. And they've really stuck it out as a board to try and get things right. But they need to be supported. And normally when things get here, as a shareholder, you're expected to come in and put in the equity that is needed to help the business. Like we had to do in helping SAA to restructure, we had to find the money to make that happen. And we made a decision there to say going forward, the business must find others to come in and assume the risk in terms of working capital. That's the decision that we made. So I thought it's important that I just emphasize that particular point. SAA, we have indicated that that it's in the midst of undergoing audits for all the many years that it has not had annual financial statements published, and that has been corrected. The 2018 financial year results are now in place. I think the case of SA Express speaks for itself. It's in liquidation. It's under the control of the liquidators, answerable not to us, but to the Master of the High Court. So we have to so that at some point the committee may want to get the liquidator in, as it has happened in the past, to say, where are you? Because we also want this process to be done as quickly as possible. And there was a question asked as to what are, it's in liquidation, and what happens when you're in liquidation? Assets get sold. And that's what has happened. The fixed assets have been sold, the movable assets have been sold. And now we have intangible assets in the form of the brand itself, the operating license, and so on, that have been put out to the market to be sold. So once that is done, then the liquidation process is concluded and the proceeds are distributed to the various creditors. That's where we are. So the SA Express, post that process, will cease to exist as a business, at least owned by us. Maybe the people who will take over the intangible assets may choose to reflow to that business again. But we made specific decisions there as well. The business went into business rescue. We could not raise the funding to enable the business rescue. So it fell into liquidation, and that's where we find ourselves here. So there's a very clear process that leads us to where we found our NTTZ. Alex Ko, Honorable Chabalala, asked about when should this process be concluded. We said that the audit is done. It's been reviewed currently by the quality unit of the external auditor. So we're expecting, hopefully before the end of financial year, to see the financial statements too. And there is arrangements being made for the AGM to be held during the course of this month. Of course, we also have to give the new board that has come in an opportunity to appraise themselves on the state of the business. The honorably asked about the internal audit review. There's a 5-year review that is done. We send out tender to get a service provider will come in and do this for us. We did that. The first tender that went out was not successful. We didn't get, the respondents did not meet our requirements. We went out for the second time, and the process is almost concluded now. So by the end of the year, of this financial year, we'll have had the internal audit review done. It was an audit funding because it is a requirement that every 5 years we do this type of work. We are addressing that. The issue of YSRs has been preferred with regard to trillion liabilities to ESCOM. It's the law. As much as we would have wanted to have that money come into ESCOM because of the financial position that it finds itself in, the law dictates that the taxman comes first. So I think in every facet of our lives, that's the reality we have to encounter at times. So we'll see from the liquidation of trillion what we'll be able to realize for ESCOM, but as we have seen from other processes, you really don't get much to the end with those. The vacancy rate, you asked beyond what was shared, what else are we doing as a department? What we are doing is that we are also ensuring that the line managers are measured on filling of vacancies. And that will go obviously a long way in terms of ensuring that the responsibilities devolve down the organization to ensure that when we get a resignation letter, we go out and seek to replace that position. But we also have to infill in these positions, and you have seen 32 of these in process now. We have to deal with the reality as well as what's going to be the form what will be the form of that the DPE will take going forward. As we know, there's a work that is happening now to finalize the bill. We'll see what the bill will say in terms of the kind of oversight organization that we must have in place. So that in itself will demand the different skills to be brought in. So to bring in skills that also correlate with being a department when we have all come to the realization that managing a portfolio of state-owned assets as a department is not optimal. And something different needs to be done going forward. And from our lessons and benchmarkings that we've done with other countries, we have seen that they've moved away from this kind of arrangement that we have here. The ExCom board is still in the works, and obviously, as we all know, there is a process that is followed in filling boards. The colleagues within our governance units have helped in terms of providing possible options in terms of filling some of the vacancies that we have there. So the process in due course, I'm sure that political principals will guide us as to their satisfaction with the work that has been done, and it will be released to everyone to know how that board has been strengthened. And we agree that it has gotten to that point where something must be done to ensure optimal skills are on that board to help with the guidance that the leadership there requires. The updates on the subsidiaries at SAA, Honorable Shabalala, we'll get the word from yourselves as the committee as to when you want the entity to come through, and that will advise them accordingly. But I think it will be good to hear about the plans with regard to the subsidiary entities. They're quite significant players in the application space in their own right. And Mango, I think we have covered it quite adequately in terms of what we intend to do. I've covered the situation of at Express. You had asked the question, what actually are our intentions there. The TNPA board, we do have an interim board of 3 people that is currently having oversight over the entity. It is Akobe, the chair, it's Mr. the head of legal as well. I'm saying from the non-executive board members. Is the chair. It is we have oh, my memory is not working well. We have 3 non-executive board members on there, and we also have 3 executive members that have been allocated to look over the entities. But those are interim arrangements. What we have reported is that we are sifting through the applications we have received for permanent board members, and they will soon be able to come out and say, this is the board now that we have in place for TNPA. Alexco, the arrangement is not optimal. You have literally an Alexco holding company that really does not have much in terms of operations, and you have the PS JV where the operations are. Our first prize is to have that collapsed in the interim, and in its own way, we are achieving that particular objective, and we're hoping that the board will help us out in that regard as well. The new board that has come in, and in the long run, we obviously need to ensure that the communities have a bigger say in terms of what is happening at Alexco. There's an asset in 1928 that was taken from the community to enable the Nationalist Party government at the time to purchase arms for the country. So the deed of settlement is intended to restore that injustice, and that eventually means that that asset must go back to the people. The land mining rights have been restored, and I think it's only right going forward that a partner that can work closely with the community going forward is found, and because the Alexco, in terms of our total diamonds production as a country, is a very small player. It's less than 6% of the total output of the country. So I think it's only the right time now for us to continue moving on. There were questions around the community structures, Rechtersval community structures. The under administration through rural development, and the chair. The next time Alex comes in, I think the committee may want to invite that department to come and share the progress that they are making with their own administrator in terms of sorting out those entities. Because some of the obligations that are expected of Alexco to the community get discharged through community entities. And with those being under administration and some of them having gone dormant, Underscore found itself constrained in terms of meeting the requirements of the deed of settlement. So your intervention in this regard will help greatly. But there are, at an officials level, regular interactions with our colleagues in that environment to really keep track of progress. I think a little bit of pressure from the committee will not do any harm. If anything, it will be of great help. Honorable Kachalia, the issue, annual reports, and you are correct, we all want them to come out in line with the PFMA provisions or prescriptions. But if you are not in a position to publish that report, what you then do? Our company law is very specific under the terms of which you can prepare financial statements. So if you say the entity must prepare financial statements anyway, even if you know it's not in a going concern status, in a way you're saying that entity must be closed down. So we must also be careful of what we are asking for, lest we are not happy with the implications of some of the directive we want to put these entities through legislation. But I'm sure at the right time, it's your members' bill, as you have referred to it, goes through Parliament. There will be engagements with ourselves and we'll advise accordingly. But ultimately, it's the call of the lawmakers as to how they want to deal with the challenge that we have outlined. And on consultants, we don't use consultants much, I must just say, relative to our total budget. We do, unfortunately, have very complex organizations under DPE, and it would not make economic sense to keep some of the skills that are required to do some of the work in here on a permanent basis. For instance, to develop a restructuring plan for Alexco, can't have that type of person sitting here. We will not be able to afford the person who has those kind of skills. So we'll go out into the market to get someone to come in and do that work over a couple of weeks and prepare a report which obviously gets reviewed and implemented by the officials in the department. That's how it works. But it's in line with what has been in many occasions being espoused from this house. We are very prudent in terms of when we use consultants, because we understand that the abuse such services have brought into government in the past, where literally people are abdicating their responsibilities to be so that it's done by consultants. We don't do that here in this department. We also have people in this department of very good skills, and that's why having insight is also where it is, because they're also highly sought after in the market as well. So yeah, I just wanted to send that message through to yourself. And like we said, we had a big task that we intended to undertake. That's quite big money. I refer to the SOE bill. I mean, we are not in a fortunate position of the rest of government where they write these legislations and amendments on a regular basis. So it makes absolutely no sense for us to keep such capacity in the department. And of course, when you're dealing with an issue like SOE, shoulder governance regime going forward, it's a very important task for us. So we want to get as much independent as possible. Therefore, what we had allocated for that particular task. The transmission business, that good progress, as we said, has been made. Transmission business is legally separate from as of the end of last year. What was required was the legislation from DMRE to align, because you need to be able to license that entity. So that the amendments to the ERA and to the EPP that have been published will enable us to do that. And we should still be able to meet the deadlines we set ourselves in terms of corporatization of also the other two divisions. So good progress has been made there. Honorable Kachalia. Midupi and Kusile, the defects that were there, the management has been able to reach agreement with some of the critical suppliers and OEMs on those systems, and the work is being undertaken as part of the maintenance effort that's going on at ESCOM. So, and we will understand in terms of addressing what has come to be known as design defects is being undertaken there. Transnet is not being unbundled. So you're asking about progress on what we are doing is just corporatizing TNPA in line with the National Post Act of 2005, which is a long-outstanding requirement in government. So that's all that we are doing in that regard. SAA, maybe the numbers are a bit confusing. The 2 billion rands in expenditure, that there's a lot of once-off cost items on there. For instance, in restructuring the business and paying off voluntary severance packages, that money flows through the income statement. But it's a once-off item, so it can tend to distort the performance of the business. The same applies to the other restructuring costs, including paying off creditors, historical creditors. All those monies have to go through the balance sheet, they have to go through the income statement. So the business in relation to it, what is now the established cost base, is doing relatively well. And we must just say, all the airlines are losing money. Some, of course, state-owned airlines, they have to publish their numbers. They have to be in the public arena. But everyone is suffering. The capacity that they have relative to where the market finds itself, especially the impact of Omicron at the peak of the travel season, the end of the last calendar year. Everyone is hurting. That's where we find ourselves in, and we should not allow ourselves also to be swayed by some of the public relation exercises that are being undertaken by some of our competitors, where they are coming out into the public and say SAA is not viable. Of course, they want it to disappear so that they can have the market to itself, to themselves. But what we know for sure, as South Africans, we know that historically marginalized people have been able to get into jobs, into professions, and into businesses that ordinarily they would not have been in because of the SOEs. And we have to ask ourselves, is the work of ensuring that our people have a share of this economy, is it concluded? Can we now say the government should step off business completely? I don't think we are there yet. What we need is, we want definitely well-run SOEs, but we want SOEs that are helping us to address the issue of representation of our people. Unfortunately, the pace in the private sector has not been as good as it should have been in terms of ensuring that our people are well represented. And of course, we know about the issues of women representation on boards in the private sector. The authorities' approvals that need to be obtained is that with the Competition Commission, as well as the BBBE Commission. We have to go through those particular hurdles. There's nothing discreet about it. It's very much in the public arena. Everyone knows as you do this kind of transactions, what kind of approvals should be obtained. I've addressed the issue of SAA losses. Mango has been trimmed back quite a lot. So there's no operating costs that we're incurring beyond keeping the post holders, which are important to maintain some of the accreditation licenses that the airline has, because that's where the value is. If you are out there in the market and seeking buyers for the business, that's where we find ourselves in. There are no unnecessary costs that are being kept at Mango, and we keep a very tight overview of that through our team here. There's this issue around lift and Mango's troubles and its continued operation going forward. The investor was to be able to make a decision to say which parts of SAA they would like to have in the new SAA as it goes forward. The decision that they made is that Mango is not going to be part of that. And as you know, Lift is managed separate, not by Takatsu, it's managed by Global, it's owned by Global, separate from the Takatsu consortium. As to what will happen in the future, obviously, we'll see what will happen. And of course, we'll still have representation on the board and ensure proper decisions are made in that regard. So there is the conflict that's been referred to. I don't understand it, and maybe Ms. Kachelia can explain it a little bit more, but we are not seeing it. And we had quite one of the top law firms, by the way, advising us on this particular transaction. I've answered the questions on financial SAA, financial performance and profitability, on SAX, provisional liquidity, provisional liquidation rather. We have answered those. It's not in our hands. It's in the liquidators answerable, the Master of the High Court. So we'll wait for that particular process. But we also want that process to move quickly. If every day that the liquidator is doing this work, they're charging fees. And those fees obviously are coming from some of the assets that has been disposed. And would not want that. We would not want a situation that goes on indefinitely with intention of one party benefiting from the process of liquidation. The Durban and PSP process. Let's wait for the results. There's a procurement process that has been undertaken to be properly reviewed. We'll see the results when they come out. Unless you are telling me that there's some wrongdoing that you have picked up, please bring it to our attention or to other authorities. But as far as we know, this process is being handled with extreme prudence by the team at Transnet, because they know, this is quite a significant undertaking and the public will be interested in the results of it. I think let's wait for that. Sub-Green Tech liquidation that you referred to, there has been engagements between the two boards, Dinel and Sub-Green Tech, and there is an arrangement that has been arrived at. Dinel is going to be at the PC next week. You'll be in a position to be able to ask further on that question. I've made my own comments with regard to your reference to 90 presentation on Dinel. I've spoken to the issues of Alexco, the issues of the community and the hardships that are going through. That's why rural development is there. The structures of the community that were put in place. There was infighting that was going on. That community is always in courts against each other. That's why those structures were rendered ineffective. And we need, as government, we are seeing how we can help out, obviously, to restore normality to that particular region, because it's a very strategic region for the country. And there's a community that has suffered for many years as a result of apartheid dispensation that we come from. And we want to do right by those communities. But what is important is also that yourselves as representatives, as you go into the community, to also seek to mediate in some of these disputes that you have in there. And unfortunately, these disputes are being driven also by those that have illegally benefited from the business in the past. So that's the request that we make to yourself. But what's going, you have a team that here in the department that goes there quite often. So you're quite aware of what is going on in that business. The staff call at some point, I'm sure they will also make their way here to the portfolio committee. They'll be able to share their strategies. But very briefly, I would say we are seeking to beneficiate the solo. There's many products, especially these days, and as Honorable Dlamini correctly pointed out, with concerns around climate change, that can be derived from wood. Even plastics, you can produce plastics from wood, and good thing is it's degradable. You're not sitting with waste that takes hundreds and thousands of years to biodegrade. So that's what we that's what SAFCO team is seeking to do. But as they do so, they have had to navigate the very difficult economy that they found themselves. This business very much exposed to the economic cycle. If the housing market is depressed, there's new house being built, they can't sell wood for trusses. Same applies to the mining sector is in trouble, they can sell wood for supports. So, but things have, within that difficult environment, they have been able to acquit themselves, which is great. On all matter, the positions that have been unfunded, we obviously would look at the impact on the operations, and we look to have to ensure that our operations are not negatively affected as a result. So, for instance, we used to have 7 DDGs in the department. We said no, we need to reduce the size of EXCO, and we need to have more feet on the ground in the department. So as we defund some of those functions, the corporate management DDG position has been defunded. So the chief directors in that program are now having to take on more responsibility as a result. But it also, what it does, it makes for much more transparent view from where I'm sitting as a DG in terms of what's going on in that particular program. So I think we have tried to work around that as much as we could. But it's a reality of where we find ourselves, and the rest of government is also having its own cost cutting being imposed on them. So that's the pain that we all are having to take. Chair, we are in constant communication, Honorable with our NT colleague in public finance. There's a director who's responsible for the department. We have good visibility in terms of the finances, a state of our finances. And as we come to the end of the year, we have not spent it. We obviously have to surrender the money back to the treasury. That's something that we are hoping in the future will not be happening, because we need the very few positions that we have here. The capital assets that was referred to is the IT assets. We wanted to renew quite a bit of our IT. We have had a very strange situation in that there are transversal contracts, which has suppliers that have been vetted by National Treasury. But those contracts have not been performing. Some of our requirements have, for the whole year, we have not received. So the people put in bids, they are successful, you expect them to deliver. The delivery doesn't happen. So you keep going back. And that's where we find ourselves with this in this particular front. But that's a situation that we are addressing. I'm also not happy, I must say, with supply chain management. We also take a long time for turnaround on requirements. So we have had some tough discussion internally, and we're looking for a tool as well to help us to automate some of the functions in that particular environment. So we should. On the issue of the 900,000 that we've spoken to, the fault here is not with the contractor. The fault is with ourselves. Put it that way. We used, as I said, a supplier from National Treasury. The contract was with National Treasury, and it was closed before the work was finished here. Our communication between ourselves and National Treasury certainly could have been much better. But we have written to National Treasury on that. We have asked for condemnation on it. We are hoping to be cleared before the end of the financial year, or by the time we release our financial results for the 22 financial year. The Transnet audit findings, the backlog that you have pointed out, Honorable Maud, I think we can't fault your observation. What this may need a chair is as the entities come through, that this matter gets interrogated in great detail by the committee itself. What we can do from our side, we can provide more information in terms of what lies behind the table. And I'll ask maybe after I've spoken about DDG Medisa, whether I would like to add anything to that. But we track these and we put as much pressure as we can on our SOEs to ensure that these audit findings are addressed. And some of them, I must say, are also linked, as I indicated, with regard to regional expenditure, which was a big issue. It's related as well to how we have formulated our guidelines, National Treasury guidelines on the regular expenditure. And we have engaged with them, and there's acceptance on that side that something needs to be done in that area. But things unfortunately take a bit of time, such that going forward we don't incur a similar regular expenditure. But a lot of it obviously is linked to the dodgy contracts that were put in place in that business, which is taking quite a lot of effort, especially to go down to operational level to ensure that these sort of acts are not continuing. But we are hoping that in the end of this financial year, we'll see some good progress have been made in that regard. Answer the question with regard to the shareholder complex earlier. I think the point that you're making as a finance person with regard to operating expenditure versus revenues is a valid point. You want to keep those within acceptable limits, such that you are able to release money, obviously, to invest in your plant and equipment and so on. So if a lot of your revenues are going to paying for operational expenses, you find yourself in a difficult period in the long run. So we have noted your comments, but what I would also would like to say is also these ratios are also quite unique to each industry. So you normally can't have the same number across the industry. Some of the industries are very people intensive, for instance, are very equipment intensive rather. So yeah, but I think that's a discussion that I think we need to get into, because that informs how we also compact in terms of our shareholder company, in terms of the financial performance expectation from the department. We look at the peers of these entities in terms of the way they are sitting, for instance, on debt to equity ratio. For instance, you'll find that across the sectors, those numbers are different. There's some entities that are or some sectors where entities are highly leveraged. That's how the business model operates. The SAA have addressed the issue of 2 billion as well as 500 million. With regard to the SAP, if there was any desperation, the desperation was that to ensure that government going forward does not continue to carry the burden of losses at SAA, fortunately that we have, because the aviation sector has been liberalized for quite some time. We had players in the industry that could step in, but we had to do it in a responsible way to ensure that we do not leave the people at SAA destitute. That's why it was important that we have an orderly restructuring of the business through business rescue, where we are able to ensure that the people that left the business at least had voluntary severance packages that could sustain them as they look for other ways of earning an income. And the same applies. Yesterday there was a story around the training and layout scheme, which is a very great scheme, I must say. We have to find each other, and also SAA to help us out in terms of concluding its audit process, so that it becomes current, so that you can access facilities that are available to sustain that training and layout scheme. So we need to ensure that people that are skilled are in an economy that they find themselves in a situation where the economy, because of where it is, they don't have jobs, that we are able to sort of put them in incubation type program, so that they can become available when those jobs or the economy rebounds and the jobs are created again. So that's where it is emanating from. But we are quite confident that as things are getting better globally, and the aviation is also recovering, that the new SAA will find its place, so to speak, in the sun, and that the discipline that comes with private capital will rub on this business going forward, and hopefully we'll be able to report someday that we've received dividends from SAA. The point that you're making with regard to employees and where they find themselves, the impact of the state of our SOE. That's what happens when people choose to become corrupt in running these businesses, as articulated by Zondo, and capital is hollowed out of these businesses. That's what happens. Businesses fail. People end up not getting paid salaries. And this does not only happen in SOEs, it happens in the private sector as well. And we have had in the past a situation where the state would come in, would provide equity injections to pay for operational inefficiencies. We cannot have that. If money is solicited from the state, it should be for capital programs that create new cash flows. So, the comment that I made earlier as well, when we choose not to provide additional funding to these entities, that's what we end up with. We end up with people that have only had 20% of their salaries paid. So we need to understand the implications of some of the decisions that we make as government in reaction, obviously, to some of the bad things that have happened in our SOEs. And in some instances, we have to also ask ourselves, what is the social cost, including opportunities for marginalized people that disappear with the demise of these entities as well. Honorable Gumede, your comments with regard to the structure of the report, we appreciate that, and guided obviously by yourselves and the chair, will hear officially as to the retention of the portions that you have referred to. But we are happy that we are able to meet with your requirements with this report. I must say, your categorization that you have put in, I'm hoping that Advocate Makobe was listening to you, because we may have solved some of his problems in terms of how we categorize SOEs. And thank you for that. The fact that we didn't have to bring in a consultant to do that work, we appreciate it very much. Thank you. But I think it's a very logical categorization that you've come up with, and the comments that you have made in relation to this is very much welcome. The comment that you're making with regard to SAA, that we have been able to reach consensus with National Treasury in the remainder of what is required for the business rescue process, as we had indicated at the time. Some of the liabilities will be settled over a 3-year period. So we had the 10.5 billion rands that we had received was to take care of the first year of costs. In the subsequent 2 years, the funds, the second year, the funds did not come in as we had hoped. We scrambled literally within that 10.5 to meet that, but there's been an agreement that the 3.5, that is the 3.5 billion rands, shall be provided, and there was comments to that effect from the budget. Mango got 819 million. As we said, there's about 400 million that's remains, and that's mainly to take care of outstanding liabilities from the business rescue process, including some of the creditors that need to be paid a certain amount to the rent. I think the Alesco rentals, what you're referring to when you said flats, that problem has been addressed. Alesco management is dealing with ensuring that people that occupy the residential places there are being paid. The SAFCO land claims, good progress has been made. That documented, I think about 2 years ago, our president handed over the land to the Mkwanazis on the north coast of KwaZulu-Natal, and there's more work that has been done. Currently, we have our forestry team in the department working very closely with DPME, which is leading the effort to settle the claims. So that's what we'll say, and at some point we may want to give progress on this, but will be advised by the committee when we want to do that. The comments that I'm making with regard to denial SNDF are very important. We are a very strategic region in the world, South Africa, also by virtue of our position in the South Seas. We need to have a capable navy to ensure that we properly police the 3,000, I think almost 4,000 kilometer coastline that we have. And also, of course, we have those islands to the southeastern part of our country that we need to ensure that there's regular surveillance being done. So maritime surveillance is important. We need to ensure that we have, our army and the Air Force are adequately funded to be able to do some of the tasks that they must do, like protecting our sovereignty and ensuring our airspace is safe. So when you hear comments like the Grippins are on the ground because we don't have a maintenance contract, it does not look good. But those are the decisions that we also make by defunding this area of government. So as the lawmakers, I would hope that's one of the issues that you may be a better position to be able to ask on our behalf. Because all that we do, we implement what you give us. Give us a budget, we'll implement it with its implications. I think with regard to recovering people that have left Denel, time is probably not very much against us on this one. Because the longer the people stay outside, the harder it will be for them to come back. And as you correctly pointed out, IP, to a large extent, leaving people's heads. We may have the documents, but the background IP is what fits new products going forward. So the longer the situation at Denel goes on, the harder it will be to be able to recover the situation going forward. The point that you are making with regard to transparency in terms of allocations that are made to our SOEs, then the portfolio committee, I think, has the latitude, and I don't know the rules of Parliament to say, because this will go to the Appropriations Committee, to the Finance Committees to say, in relation to those the entities that we have oversight on, we'd like to have those come by here and even post approval by those committees. As part of the regular reporting that we do, the quarterly reporting we do, you can ask us to bring that information here as well. On the issues of conflict of interest in our SOEs, our internal team here, and Mapobe will say a little bit more about that. That has been managed very well. I must say we have brought in, or rather we developed a policy under the risk and integrity framework, which we have a team that goes around to the SOEs on a regular basis to get updates in terms of implementation of some of the provisions of that policy, and to get and to ensure that the regular surveillance of these SOEs finances and operations are being done to ensure that if there are any incidences of wrongdoing, we are able to pick them out. Honorable Dlamini, we have an interim board now. It's populated at Alexco, that is. It's populated by people of skill and integrity. We do not believe that what we have had in the past will happen, but of course, we keep our eyes open. We do regular engagements with these, at the minister's level, with the board, and obviously at the officials level with the executive, to ensure that what we have had in the past does not happen. But I must also say, what was happening in the past, not that there were no investor reports that were prepared by the department that went to the ministers at the time to say, we are observing this, we are observing that. I think this is the issues, how do we ensure as we go forward that the shoulder oversight activities are transparent enough that where wrongdoing has been pointed out, it can be visible beyond the department. The jobs created, we used to have this target jobs created in our shoulder complex in the past. But what we tend to find is that SOEs create jobs internally. Jobs are not created in industry, and we have the kind of situation we have now at ESCOM, where some experts have said 16,000 more people than we need. How entities create jobs is that when we undertake these capital programs, like that Transnet has spoken to, they create jobs during the construction phase, but invariably there are new operations that post development that get put in place when new businesses are set up. I mean, studies that we've done here, for instance, for every job at Dinao, 6 jobs are created in the rest of the defense and related industries. And I think the multiple for the likes of ESCOM and the aviation industry is something like 1 to 4. So that's how jobs are created. They should be about, if possible, spinning off some of the capabilities we have in our SOEs to set up fully fledged enterprises. Because when you set up that, you create jobs. So that should be the focus going forward. But we do on a regular basis commission reports where we, for instance, we look at a particular investment program. Say, what was its multiplier effect on the economy, for instance? We do those kind of things. And that's something I think maybe in our going forward, we need to maybe make a little bit more visible in our plans as a department. The history of Coleman Andrews from the early 2000s, I think, has been well covered. I wonder 20 years down the line, what can be done in recovering that the data many. But I think your sentiments are very much welcome. I've spoken about SAFCOL and the role of decarbonization that can be played. The comments that you're making on DSPs, well, I appreciate it, because you are saying there are people that have been let go and through the BSP and new people being hired. If you have information, please, if you can bring it to our attention. But obviously what the management is trying to do there as well is try to manage the salary bill at the business. But I don't have much details in this area, and I don't know any of the colleagues would like to comment on it later on. The branch lines and some of the effort that has not been made in the past to keep this in a good condition. Those comments are accepted. But as well now, some of the concessioning that has been done has been tried to bring other actors into that space to ensure that those lines are brought back into operation. But also what we need to do going forward, and this has been one of the messages to our team here on DTM, we need to see what the role of the municipalities, where which these branch lines traverse, what role can they play, what investment they can mobilize themselves to ensure when the line is restored, that it is utilized. It may not be long haul freight that is getting moved, but freight that can be moved within the districts, within the local municipalities, to look at what will make the economics of that possible. We hear your comments with regard to CRRC, but I think let's leave that to the courts that determine. We have engaged SASEC, which is a parent agency in China on this CRRC matter. We have our own views, but we do not necessarily want to share them on this platform. But our comment would say, let's leave those to those who are probably better positioned to deal with them. The Makobe has spoken to the 1064 funds in terms of what has been done to recover those. The ESCOM power station recoveries that we have covered some of the initiatives that have been undertaken at ESCOM to address the funds that have been misappropriated, but also spoken to some of the effort that is going on to improve maintenance, including some of the agreements that have been reached with some of the OEMs. Mepiri in Zimbabwe, it's good to hear from you. we welcome your comments with regard to the corruption report. Dr. Makobe will talk to some of the efforts that they are taking with the authorities to ensure that progress is made in this regard. But to a large extent, our law enforcement agencies are independent, as we all know. I've covered SAA Express. We hear your cries about Cape Town, and in actual fact, our minister raised it with our colleagues at SAA to say you need to engage the office of the speaker to ensure that you schedule your operations such that, especially during the peak seasons of Parliament, that you put enough capacity on there. But of course, they're operating for narrow bodies currently, so it does constrain how many slots they can have in place there. I'm not aware of the overpayment that you're referring to one of the executives at ESCOM, unless you are referring. But I heard you refer to name currency. You're not aware of this, and if you have any information, we'll appreciate it. But we don't. Sincerely, we do not know anything about that. The SOE collaboration remains a big objective on our parts. For instance, we have gotten the TE Transnet Engineering colleagues to engage with SAA Tinkal at some point to see what kind of collaboration can happen there. And I agree with you, comments that you have made in relation to dinner. From where we are sitting, we can have the engagements happen, but we cannot instruct, we cannot interfere in the operations of these particular entities, and that's what good governance demands of us. With IFLOMA and SAFCOL, actually, IFLOMA is benefiting from SAFCOL's intervention. It's not the other way around. IFLOMA was a loss-making business for the longest of time. Many hundreds of millions of rands have gone into that business from SAFCOL. Now we're expecting that money to come back in the form of dividends and so on to SAFCOL. And SAFCOL has deployed management. The new management we have in place has invested a lot of time and energy in ensuring IFLOMA gets itself to where it is. Thank you so much. I'll stop there and ask Advocate Makobe to come in and answer any of the questions that I may not have touched on. Dr. Makobe, you want to speak on the engagements we're having with law enforcement agencies.
I think on the matter of the law enforcement agencies, we will refer matters to them for investigation, but obviously we cannot put the timelines on them because of their independence. But we've got regular meetings with, for example, the SIU, just to really determine what is the progress on the matters that they are investigating and for them to give us progress reports. But in terms of putting the timelines, we cannot, because they are independent bodies and they've got to undertake their own investigations in line with their mandate. But we do get progress report in that regard with regard to where they are in the matters.
Chairperson, we'll stop there and thank you very much for giving us the time to respond.
Okay, are you? That's good. Honorable members, that is the response to your questions. Just with the 2 or 3 minutes that we have, can I check if there is any question that one feel it is not properly covered? Honorable Shabalala.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Thank you for the opportunity. I think, look, the DG and the team have done very well. Maybe just as you conclude, Chair, if you could just allow them just to introduce themselves, because we can see they're hardworking men and women who are sitting around the table. just to put the faces to the presentations that we keep on having. Chair, I want to just check with the DG with regards to the Denel issue. And we know that it's technically insolvent, and the net equity is reported at a negative 1 billion as of the 31st December 2021. And the issue of broader alignment is required between the Department of Defense, Department of Public Enterprises, National Treasury, and other relevant stakeholders to engage on the future state of Denel. That is the question. I would want to understand if we have that broader alignment really between the Defense, the Department of DPE, and National Treasury, and other relevant stakeholders really. You have reported on many aspects around its finances, but I think this is an important part. And why I'm saying this, I think it will enable Denel to pursue a strategy to revise really its operating model with the intention of consolidating operations, disposing of non-core assets, and executing identified strategic equity partnership to alleviate its financial pressure. So to the committee, I think that we should really also get information, DG, as the committee, on the litigation that is faced by Denel regarding its solvency. I think it's quite critical. Might not be now, but I think we need to do that. The second part, I want to understand, DG, when we say we've got under expenditure that we've recorded, do we have an understanding maybe at this point as to exactly what is the volume of the under expenditure in its totality that we're going to take back to Treasury? And yes, you reported that this will not happen again in the future, but I think it's something that we need to note, and I, for one, I'm not happy with that, primarily for many reasons that we know. And we cannot continuously have money that goes back to Treasury for many other reasons. When the year and financial year starts, we need to ensure that our planning, our strategic plans, even in different different portfolios that we're having in DPE, sub-programs for that matter, and programs, that they are able to be planned such that this money that we budget for and we pass budget, but you are unable to spend it. We understand there's other things that might be beyond your control, but I want to understand the volume of this amount that we're taking back, and at the end of the day, what is it that we're going to want again from Treasury? And we're going to come back again and say we have been under budgeted, or rather we've not been budgeted and so forth. I'm worried about it given these volumes of troubles and challenges that we're having in different entities. Let me leave it at that, but I want to really congratulate you, DG, today for a good work, and insofar how you were responding to all the questions. One will think that you had these questions before, but it also shows that you do have capacity to understand your department that you're running. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable members, I ask if...
Chair, President.
I want honorable members to just check questions that they have asked, which they feel are not properly covered. I will appeal to the members not to ask new questions now, because we have a problem of time already. I was just giving you just the positive gesture because I'm a nice person. Honorable Piri?
Thank you, Chair. I'll go straight. I wanted to try and clarify. Maybe when I spoke earlier, I quoted the wrong name, but remember I was referring to the COO, not the CEO, by the name of Jean. I can't even pronounce the surname. Even there was a time in plenary we raised or made a statement.
Kachalia? No, it's Kachalia. You mute Kachalia.
Okay. So the way DG could not respond is because maybe I've raised a wrong name. But I was referring to the issue of COO, Mr. Jean, be it a former or still the current. But even though the name, whether it has been cleared or not, then I felt or we need to also try to get a response if there was a wrong allegation or a true allegation. If not, then did we receive the money back or what? So I was referring to that particular case, Chair. Thanks.
Oh, thank you, Honorable Pierre. Honorable Kachalia, I hope you have not think of new questions. You are the last person now before I give the department.
That's precisely what I was going to say, sir. I'm not going to ask any questions, new or old, but what I will do is I've listened carefully to the responses of the DG, and I have made notes. I will cross-reference against the questions I asked, and if there are any gaps, I will put it in writing and request a response. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Kashalia. Honorable DG.
Yeah. No, thank you very much, Chair. As I indicated, Honorable Shabalala Dinel will be with yourself, I think, in the next week. We have taken note of the two area strategy and litigation. They will cover that strategy again, which requires funding with yourselves. On the issue of alignment, I think we're not. The fact that we have a plan, we have made a request for funding, it was not accepted. It shows that alignment is not there. But we understand that we are operating within a bigger government with many other priorities, and at times what we request we may not receive. We have regular sessions with our colleagues at DOD. The issue of strategy, what needs to be done, is something that is always on the table. Of course, issues of facilities and capabilities that will serve as a result of funding is of major concern to them, but themselves they are not in a position to provide that additional quantum of funding that is needed. So yeah, I think probably the work that needs to be done is very much gone above our pay grades as DGs. But we continue slogging, we continue meeting, we continue having the discussions to see what can be achieved within the limited room that we have to move. Chair, the Honorable Puri, the issue she was raising on COO Yana Oberhauser, then the issue related to investments in entities that the private sector entities that have also are doing business with Eskom, and whether there was a conflict of interest there. That was properly investigated, and the COO was exonerated. There's no incidences of overpayment to himself, and I think there was a statement to that effect that was released by Eskom to relay that very point. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, DG. Honorable members, that is the end of our engagement of the presentation. I think we reached a time where we have to thank the department, thank you, the Deputy Minister, and the department led by the DG. We really appreciated your presentation. Now we have to release you so that as members we can be in a position to finish the business of the day. Thank you. You are released.
Good day, good afternoon.
Yeah, now coming back to the Secretary of the Portfolio Committee, Mr. Tisang Mutsumi. Can you take us through with the minutes of the previous meetings?
Okay, thank you, Chair. It's only 2 sets of minutes. the minutes of the 23rd of February, which is last week, which is the follow-up, the briefing by ESCOM on the midterm results, unbundling and the security of supply, but it was a joint meeting with the Select Committee on Communication. The meeting was attended by the Deputy Minister. They were also led by the chairperson of the of ESCOM, Professor Makoba. The input of the Deputy Minister, the input of the chairperson of the board of ESCOM, and then the summary of the presentation of ESCOM. We just actually give a synopsis because the presentation is available, and then we also give a synopsis of the observations of the committee, and then the committee didn't adopt any minutes on that day. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Machumi. Members, can we move the adoption of the minutes?
Chairperson, my name is Judith Chabalala. I move for the adoption of the minutes as read and raised by the Secretary. Thank you.
Honorable Chabalala has moved for the adoption of the minutes. Is there any seconder?
Chair,
Yes.
I move to second the proposal by Honorable Shabalala that the minutes be adopted.
Honorable Kumede seconded the Honorable Shabalala for the adoption of the minutes. The second batch of the minutes, Mr. Muchumi.
Chair, the second batch of minutes is the 16th of February, which was a follow-up meeting with Transnet on that the financial statements for 2020-21, and also the private sector participation model that they presented. And then that is the people who were present in the meeting, the opening remarks, political input of the Minister of Public Enterprises, the presentation of Transnet, what it entailed, and then the summary of the discussions and the responses, and then the minutes that we adopted for the 1st of December and the 8th of December. And then also the adoption of the program for the first term.
Okay. Honorable Muchumi, thank you. Can we get a mover of the meeting, of the minutes of the 16th of February?
Chair, Honorable Kiri, I move for the adoption of the minutes as presented by the Secretary. Escalated to Honorable.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Piri. On the borders of South Africa and Zimbabwe, moving the adoption of the minutes. Is there any seconder?
I rise to second the move for the adoption of the minutes as read and raised by the Secretary that, to adopt it officially from the Zimbabwe borders. Thank you. On a lighter note.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Shabalala, for the secondment of the adoption of the minutes. Honorable members, I think that is the end of the minutes. Is there anything else, Secretary?
No, Chairperson.
On that note, honorable members, thank you so much for attending this portfolio committee and make very, very, very crucial questions and comments. Have a nice day. The meeting is adjourned.
Long live the chair.
Long live the chair.
There's the borders. He's singing. Long live.
Hey. Yes, borders is Zimbabwe.
Recording stopped.